We were looked down upon and treated as if African Americans had rabies. The time, again, in the segregated South still in the 1940s was very dangerous.
That's a direct quote from Donald Jackson as he was training to become a Tuskegee Airman, eventually flying planes during World War II. When it came to black men, it was questionable if they could even fly a plane.
And the idea of can men of color, black men, fly airplanes? I mean, as backwards as that seems, that was sometimes the thought. And so the experiment, if you will, began there down in Tuskegee. And what was produced there were some of the greatest fighter pilots that the World War II saw.
Ben Salcetta is the president and CEO of the Kansas Aviation Museum. This exhibit you're seeing is the Rip Gooch Black Aviators exhibit that just opened last May. Gooch was also a Tuskegee Airman. His legacy still stands tall today.
He was part of the Wichita Airport Authority and was involved with the creation of the Eisenhower Airport there and involved on that. So, I mean, just his ability to integrate and get engaged in a community really has opened doors for many people beyond what he probably ever even thought was possible.
Gooch did pave the way for black men who look like him. Sam White is a pilot at Delta Airlines. He's been there for 7 years. Before that, he served in the Air Force for 26 years.
I have the most high admiration for those folks because their barriers and challenges far outweigh anything that I had to face.
White had a stellar career in the Air Force, getting all the way up to the rank of colonel. But on the road to getting there, he did have people who doubted him as a black man. The first one started with him trying to get a letter of recommendation for the Air Force Academy.
I had one teacher who will remain nameless who told me, he's like, John Doe is there, as if I'm supposed to put the math together that he's smart and I'm not. And he's like, you got to be pretty smart to get into there. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm putting my application in.
The stigma behind it has to do with years of segregation and, yes, racism.
Tuskegee sits just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, not too far. And so obviously those are areas that would, a decade later be really the birthplace and the climax of the civil rights movement.
But the Tuskegee Airmen program changed the page for that stigma, specifically in this photo. Then First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt rode in a plane piloted by a black airman.
The fact that the First Lady would go in there at that time is so important in terms of race relations and the idea of the initial report that came out that blacks were incapable of flying.
She goes down there, she sees the chief pilot is black, and she says, I want to go up with him. And, to the dismay of the Secret Service, she's strong-willed. Apparently she got in and flew around for 45 minutes, an hour, however long, and she's like, they seem good to me.
A moment in history for black airmen was clearly a powerful statement back then. But today, White says not many black people are flying planes.
Right now, there's only 2 to 3% of, military pilots that are African American or person of color, and the same percentage is largely true on the civilian side.
White feels that he stands on the shoulders of giants like Rip Gooch and Donald Jackson. He still feels the pressure to deliver his best work as a pilot more than 80 years after the Tuskegee Airmen program started.
Like, you can't mess up because you might feel like everybody's looking at you, right? That may or may not be true, but if you're messing up, if you fail, then all the fingers are pointing. Well, see, they're not capable to do this.
But White does inspire the future generation.
I teach the people who, come from different walks of life, whether it be the military or the regionals, and I teach them how to fly the 757 and the 767. So they get their license, and then they go out and make money for Delta Airlines.
In Wichita, Leon Purvis, KAKE News on your side.